Hey Arlington Public Library, I'm Tom Ryan, and I am really excited that my novel Way to Go was chosen by your Teen Advisory Board as one of its 2013 reading picks. So I'm going to do an interview, and I've chosen to do it in video format, so let's get started. Way to Go is the story of Danny, who is a 17-year-old growing up in the small town of Deep Cove, Nova Scotia. It's the summer between his sophomore and senior years of high school, and he's trying to figure some things out about himself, who he is, where he's going with his life, and he's trying to navigate the relationships that he's got with his family, with his friends, and most importantly with a girl who shows up in Deep Cove from New York City and teaches him a couple of things about life and himself. So I actually had a couple of jobs in high school, and both of them were really important to me for a couple of different reasons. The first one was as a clerk at a movie rental spot. This is back in the dark ages when you still had to rent your movies on VHS. There was no Netflix, there was no iTunes, there was no way to download movies. And so you went to the movie store and rented VHS tapes. And I learned a lot about film working there because I would take out movies after I got off my shift. And as long as I brought them back before my next shift started, I didn't have to pay for them. So I was watching movies all the time, and I really got into cinema back then. And the other job that I had, which is really relevant to Way to Go, was as a dishwasher / prep cook at a local hometown restaurant. I learned that I love food working there. I worked with some really interesting people, and some of my best memories in high school come from both of those jobs, to tell you the truth. Oh man, that's a great question. I think that if Way to Go had happened in 2013, the biggest difference between 94 and 2013, as far as Danny and his friends would be concerned, is that there would be widespread internet and social media. When I was in high school, which coincidentally lines up with the timeline of Way to Go, there was no such thing as Twitter or Facebook or YouTube, none of that stuff. It was basically word of mouth and pick up the phone if you needed to find something out. So I think that Danny in Way to Go feels kind of isolated in a lot of ways, and dreams of the wider world, and he can't wait to graduate high school and go out and experience things. And I know that that's still the way a lot of people feel in high school. It's kind of universal. But today, at least, you have access to other perspectives. You can go online and meet people who share the same interests as you, or who feel the same way about politics as you do, even if you come from a place where most people don't feel the way that you do. So I think that would have had a big impact on how Danny experienced his teenage years. But teenage drama is going to happen, from the beginning of time until we're all living in space colonies. There's going to be teenage drama and angst, and that's great because it gives me something to write about. So back in the day when I was in high school, there was no iTunes, there was no way to digitally download music. Your music came from your parents' record collections, the stuff that you could afford to buy yourself, and pretty much anything you could find from your friends, and usually that came in the form of mixtapes. I had so many great mixtapes that friends gave me as gifts when I was in high school, and there was nothing like getting a great freshly made mixtape from somebody who handed it to you at your locker the next morning. And the best mixtapes were always the ones that had a theme, that had some sort of central thread that was running through them. And you could flip sides. Each side might have one theme or another, which is kind of what happens in Way to Go when Lisa makes her going away tape for Danny. But yeah, I love those days, making music and passing it around on mixtapes. It's a lost art, and it makes me kind of sad that young people today don't have the opportunity to experience music that way. So I have two books that just came out a few weeks ago. One is called Tag Along, and it is a one-night adventure that takes place over the course of a prom night in an unnamed suburb. And it follows four characters, Andrea, Paul, Candace, and Romy. And each one of them has the opportunity to tell their story in their voice. So chapters alternate perspectives. And it really is kind of modeled on the teen movies that I loved when I was growing up. So Dazed and Confused, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. movies where a lot of stuff happened to people and people's paths intersected, and you know those nights that you go through when you're in high school that so much changes over the course of just a few hours. That's what I wanted to get across in this book, and I had a blast writing it, and I really love the characters, and I would recommend that you guys go out and read it and tell me what you think. The other book that I wrote is for a bit of a younger audience. It's called Totally Unrelated, and it is about a family of Celtic musicians and their middle son Neil, who is a guitar player who plays with his professional family of musicians but isn't really into the music that they play. It was also a lot of fun to write, and it takes place in the same small town, Deep Cove, that Way to Go does. So the most memorable nights from when I was in high school aren't necessarily the ones that I spent with my closest friends, although obviously I have fond memories of those nights. The ones that really stick out in my mind, the really memorable ones, are the ones that I ended up spending with people who weren't usually part of my crowd. Every once in a while you'd find yourself in some weird situation where you were hanging out with a random group of people just by circumstance. And a lot of the time, those weird circumstantial situations would turn into great new friendships. And I'd learn a lot about myself, I'd learn about new music, and most importantly, I'd learn about some new cool people who I'd never really spent a lot of time thinking about. So those are the nights I remember most as far as all-night adventures. Spending hours in a car, driving around, getting to know new people, and forming new relationships, forging new friendships. I love YA fiction. I read a lot of young adult fiction. I read a lot of everything, but I definitely read a lot of young adult. My favorite young adult book from last year was Eleanor Park. I know that's kind of a cliche, but I love that book. It's something about the fact that it was two voices. I'm really into multivocal stories. And it was a kind of a throwback. It was a recent history. I think it took place in the late 80s. And I really love that. Having written a book, Way to Go, which took place in the mid-90s, I really responded to a story that came from a different era. I think those are great. And I read a lot of, your typical dystopian science fiction adventure stuff, the same titles that everyone else has read. But I want to give a shout out to a woman that I read way back when I was in high school, back in the 90s, and her name was Cynthia Voigt. She wrote a series of books called The Tillerman Cycle, and they were really amazing contemporary fiction, very realistic, and they were all about the characters. They were about this family of siblings that had a bunch of crazy stuff happen to them when they were really young, and they made their way to live with their grandmother in an old farmhouse in Maryland, and then kind of got involved in the community. I love those books. I read them every couple of years. I have all 7, I think there's 7 or 8 of them, and I have them all still, and I read them every couple of years just to kind of get into the mindset of these really amazing characters, and to remind myself that you don't always need a big flashy plot to tell a good story. Sometimes just finding out how people interact on the page is all I need. Yeah, I love writing in my office. I have a great office that's all set up. It's got a window that looks out onto my backyard and lots of natural light. And I usually spend my mornings working there. I'll get up early, take my dog for a run, and then I get going. In the afternoons, I will often go to my local library. Yay libraries, yay librarians, and I'm pretty much a regular there. 3 or 4 afternoons a week I spend writing at my local library. And on the weekends or in the evening, if I have some extra work to take care of, I have a few coffee shops around town that I like to go to. I find the Hublub is really helpful, and I'm a coffee freak. I drink way too much coffee, but I'm not giving it up. It's my worst habit, and if that's my biggest vice, then I think I'm doing okay. So the best advice I can give any aspiring writer is probably the most obvious advice, which is read a lot and write a lot. Stephen King said you should read 4 hours a day and write 4 hours a day, something like that. And although it might be hard to find that much time, you should definitely be sitting down with a book every day, and you should be sitting down and writing your ideas down every day as well. Give yourself time to work through plots in your head, go for lots of long walks, listen to music that you think relates to the characters that you've been working out your mind, and just sit down and write. The only way you're ever going to get a book written is to sit down and write it, and it's a daunting task, but it is one of the most rewarding things in the world to actually complete a piece of writing. Even if no one else is ever going to see it, you know that you did it, and you know that the next time you go out to do it, you'll be even better than you were with that first one. So that's it for me. I want to say thank you so much to you guys for picking Way to Go as one of your 2013 reading picks. When I got the news, I was so surprised and super excited. It was just a great and unexpected delight to find out that you guys thought that much of my book, and to be in the company of A.S. King and Malcolm Gladwell and all these other, Marissa Meyer, all these great writers. It's an honor, and I really thank you very much. And as a thank you, I want to offer up a signed and personalized copy of Tagalong, along with a swag pack, to one lucky winner. And all you have to do to win is to find me on Facebook. I am Tom Wrote That, or you can look for Tom Ryan, Young Adult Author, on Facebook, and make a comment on my Facebook page. And the comment will be Wheeler, which is this little guy here, my sidekick. And if you don't want to use Facebook, go on Twitter, follow me, and send me a tweet that says the same thing, Wheeler, W-H-E-E-L-E-R. And the third option is to make me a friend on Goodreads and send me a private message. And I will put all of the entries over the next couple of weeks into a hat, and I will pick one, and I will send a copy to the lucky winner. In the meantime, I hope you're all having a great week and you have an even better weekend, and I will be talking to you soon. Thanks again.